finalizing requirements for Phase 2 of this project. Our eventual goal is to have a tool that can be easily used by members and staff. We have purchased and configured equipment to transition to the Redstone Data Center as our backup data center later this year. With the support of the Chief Administrative Officer, we look forward to continuing our efforts to find further efficiencies in contracting and technology. Work continues on the space at GPO, designated to receive House and Senate records later this year. Due to modifications from the original construction plans, the project is slightly behind schedule, but we do not anticipate any delay in processing records at the end of this Congress. Our curatorial team has been busy with exhibits in the Capitol and House office buildings highlighting the history and artifacts of the House. Next month, we will complete installation of an exhibit dedicated to the congressional baseball and softball games. None of this work would be possible without the highly professional men and women that work in the office of the clerk. They strive to provide innovative legislative services and support to the House while protecting the integrity and traditions of this institution. I'd like to thank my fellow officers for their support, as well as our many legislative partners. Together, we try to maintain a high level of service to members, staff, and public. Thank you for your support. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. I will now turn to Mr. Irving, Sergeant at Arms.
Good morning, or good afternoon, Chairman Yoder, Ranking Member Ryan, and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present the Office of the Sergeant at Arms budget request for fiscal year 2019. The expectations of House leadership and members of Congress are very different from when the first Sergeant at Arms was elected in 1789. Modern security needs to protect members of Congress have transformed the mission and character of the office. The events of last June, coupled with the unprecedented number of threats and threatening communications to members have received within the last year, has required an increased level of safety and security needs in Washington, D.C., as well as in members' districts. In response, we have enhanced the capability at the Capitol with the creation of an operations office and created and staffed and enhanced a district office security program. I work closely with the Capitol Police Board to support the Capitol Police in its mission to protect and serve the Capitol community, proactively seeking to implement new security initiatives and to stay ahead of new and emerging threats. As noted, the increase in threats both to the campus and to individual members alike has challenged us to deploy enhanced security measures and adjust our tactical response. Among other countermeasures, the Capitol Police Board has been working to identify options for exterior screening at the most heavily used entrances throughout the Capitol complex. This is a measure to address security concerns at key exterior checkpoints, points of entry, in order to identify and mitigate threats before they enter or reach the interior of our buildings. With regard to security initiatives for fiscal year 19, I'm proposing the continuation of our district office security outreach program with member offices. Thanks to this committee, we have the funding for the installation of security system equipment at one district office per member, which includes a basic intrusion detection alarm system, duress buttons, and an intercom system. Upon request, we will also pay the monthly alarm system monitoring fees at district office locations. In addition to physical security enhancements, the District Security Service Center was established to serve as the primary point of contact for the coordination of all staff requests and issues. We've also expanded our law enforcement coordinator training to prepare district staff to effectively manage crowd control, coordinate security for events, and handle potentially threatening situations. These briefings serve to bolster the education already provided by the Law Enforcement Coordinator Program. On the Capitol complex, several projects have been completed thanks to our partnership with this committee. The successful transition of the O'Neill to the O'Neill House Office building resulted from continued coordination between the Capitol Police and the architect to maintain, update, and integrate the O'Neill security systems, such as cameras, prox cards, and alarms, to be consistent with other House office buildings. We're also working on the expansion of the House Child Care Center and will continue to keep the committee advised of the screening and other security protocols as the Child Care Center expansion space is retrofitted. In addition to the successes of these projects and programs, the garage security enhancement project is on track, designed to move the entire Capitol complex closer to 100% screening by bringing the House office buildings into the secure perimeter and in line with the Senate office buildings and the Capitol. Because of the enhanced support operations of the Sergeant at Arms, the Sergeant at Arms staff, and these new and ongoing initiatives, I'm requesting funding and increase in FTE for several of my divisions. Employees of the Sergeant at Arms are our strongest asset and essential for the successful execution of these numerous special events, projects, and programs in the upcoming years. Thank you once again, for the opportunity to appear before the committee. I want to assure you of my deep commitment and that of my entire office to remain vigilant and focused on security and preparedness, striving to adhere to the strict level of fiscal responsibility entrusted to us by the House of Representatives. As always, I will keep the committee informed of my activities, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. And last but not least, Mr. Kiko, the Chief Administrative Officer.
All right, good afternoon, Chairman Yoder, Ranking Member Ryan, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to present the CAO's budget request. Since last year, the CAO has made significant progress with the initiatives it prioritized for FY18. The organization has advanced major ongoing initiatives to improve the many services it provides. I would like to give a shout out to our Office of Employee Assistance, as they were recently presented with the Medal of Merit by Police Chief Verderosa for their outstanding counseling service to members of Congress and employees after the tragic shooting last June. The CAO is continuously looking for ways to adopt and expand cost-saving technology solutions for D.C. and district offices. For example, the CAO developed and hosts 76% of the nearly 500 member and committee websites. Our popular online service tool, My Service Requests, has expanded to include 95 services and has grown from an average of 350 requests per month in 2014 to 2,500 requests per month last year. We are working on initiatives to improve our own business processes for financial services and asset management, and on other projects, including the congressional transition upcoming this year and the Canon Renewal Project. The House has asked the CAO to take on many new responsibilities, like the implementation of the newly required Workplace Rights and Responsibilities education, which provides in-person training for as many as 12,000 individuals through 376 educational sessions in D.C. and 184 sessions in 92 locations across the country, all before July 2nd. We have also been tasked with standing up a new House of Employee Advocacy, and we're also going to be doing a survey on this issue as well. All of these initiatives serve as the basis of the organizational budget request for FY19, which is $152 million. 77% of the requested increase is for non-personnel expenditures, including cybersecurity programs, annual maintenance, and licensing of contracts for the House, contractor support, equipment, and training. 22% is for personnel and is requested to support cost of living adjustments and longevities for current staff and additional support for House Information Resources and a newly formed business unit. Of the requested increase, $7.2 million, or 36%, is dedicated to cybersecurity. Cyber attacks against the House averaged $300 to $500 million each month. Between July and December of 2017, we blocked 9.4 billion unauthorized probes, scans, and connections from the House network. And this year, the CAO has deployed nearly 200,000 security patches for servers and workstations for members. Every day, we need to employ the best security platforms because failure is not an option. I would like to highlight the continued implementation of our strategic plan. Since implementation was initiated, the CAO has undergone some major changes. Most significantly has been the creation of an entirely new business unit called the Customer Experience Center, or CEC. Based on our conversations at the beginning of the strategic planning process, focus groups with member offices, and surveys, offices find it difficult and frustrating many times to navigate the CAO's multitude of services. To be frank, when I first started, I spent most of my time putting out fires from dissatisfied members, and that's unacceptable. We need to do better. The CAO needs to better understand the complexities and challenges of member office operations and become experts in service delivery, not the other way around, which is why we created the CEC. The CEC is designed to help connect our customers with our technical, administrative, and operational experts to improve access to our services. Included in the CEC are customer advocates, full-time staff assigned to specific member offices to facilitate services and remediate problems when they arise. Last fall, when we introduced our advocates, they were well received, and we are in the process of expanding the program. I expect reliance on the advocates to grow exponentially when we expand the program to all member offices in FY18 through the upcoming congressional transition, and they have been well received by our members from our were the subject of special elections this year. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all three of you for your testimony. We'll now move to question and answer. I have a question for Ms. Haas to start out with. On the opening day of this Congress, a new House rule was adopted known as the Posey Rule, and requires a comparative print of proposed amendments. This is something that when I was in the Kansas legislature, every amendment would have a comparative print, and you were able to see sort of what was being changed, not just the changes. Your office plays a critical role in implementing this new requirement, and I know you had a December 17 deadline to implement the first phase. How's the implementation going, and what are the next steps?
So implementation is going well. We were able to meet that time frame, and currently with work from the House Legislative Council, working collaboratively with the Rules Committee, that information is available publicly prior to bills coming up on the House floor. So it's available on the Rules Committee website, for example. Phase 2, though, in the next phase and where we want to go with this project, is to make this easier for members to use and for staff to use, and not to have the professionals at Rules and Ledge Council have to use the product. So we are in phase 2 of the requirements. We expect to have those completed next month, and by the end of the month, we hope to have an RFQ out on the street to move forward with phase 2. So we're moving expeditiously, and we want to get to what you're used to from the state legislature.
And that'll be accessible to the public. It already is on the Rules
So
website.
the information is already
Right.
available, correct, but the tool itself will be used for internal purposes for members and staff to be
Okay.
able to run several different options.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then, Mr. Irving, the status of the garage security initiative, and that's something we've talked about here, the changes that we're making to garage security.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Could you update the committee on that, on the timetable?
Indeed, it's moving along well in parallel course with the garage rehabilitation project. The largest portion of the garage security initiative, frankly, is the Rayburn. We've already got, the Ford House Office Building. We have the East and West Undergrounds, or what we used to call the Hugs, but the Cannon and Longworth Undergrounds done. We still have the Rayburn and then the Cannon. The Rayburn is the biggest chunk because of the size of the garage. We are on phase 2 of the garage rehabilitation, which has also built out many of what will be the secure vestibules for our magnetometers, X-rays, and other screening equipment. So we're on track. What was missing were the FTE, Capitol Police FTE, which, thank you to this committee, we now have those funded. We're about a year out. It takes about a year to recruit, hire, train, and get those boots on the ground. So we're at about a year away from implementation. In at least an interim phase, we'll be done with phase 2, moving into phase 3 of the rehabilitation project to continue the build-out of the other vestibules. But we should be on track to begin garage security in earnest probably around this time next year.
One of the points we've discussed on this before is how members might be able to move through security through doors that are going to be closed under this initiative. I know members will have concerns about, a door they can go through now that takes them up to their office. Now they're going to have to go a different route. We talked about giving them sort of key cards or something.
Yes.
Is that still part of the process?
Indeed. Members, as you know, do not go through security and bypass security. So at the entry points, the 5 main entry points, they will obviously not go through screening. And for those access points that we have closed down, that may be closer to where they park, we will provide them prox cards so they can access those doors, so they can get to where they need to go a little bit quicker.
Okay. Mr. Kiko, I know you did a study of food service feedback in the last 6 months or so, just sort of getting information from customers, their pros and cons, what they like about food service. Any of that information that would be useful to share with the committee?
Yeah, we did a survey of all the employees. We got 2,400 responses back. It was basically, people wanted branded options, and they also wanted cafeteria-style food. And so we've moved forward on that. We've been trying to have more branded options. We've been working with the architect. We've been working with the committee on moving forward. You know, we are going to have Audubon Pond is going to be opening up, in the Cannon building. We've had some people that are now in the Longworth building as well. Boar's had and a couple of other ones. So we have plans for more, in the future, but we're trying to move very aggressively on
When
that.
does Audubon Pan open up?
At the beginning, I think in January of next year.
Okay, and Boar's Head already is in
We're
Longworth?
already there.
Okay. And then
There's long lines, they're very popular.
okay. And we already have a Subway in
Yes.
Rayburn, and there's with the Dunkin'
Dunkin'
Donuts.
Donuts.
Mhm. And those are pretty popular as well.
Yes, they are. I think that's
Mhm.
one of the largest Dunkin' Donuts in this area
Mm.
as far as volume of food.
We eat a lot of donuts here. All right, I'll yield to my friend, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Phil, I'd like to talk a little bit about the House Daycare Center. We've been talking about parking, and one of the issues I'm most concerned about over there is, we've toured it a couple times, is how we can best handle the influx of the expansion. Mr. Ayers referred to parallel or maybe slanted parking on one block, which obviously wouldn't be enough to address it. And I've since heard that maybe the front row of the big parking lot across the street might be reserved for daycare families. Can you give us the latest of what's happening over there?
Well, I know the Sergeant of Arms, and you can talk to this too a little bit, was working on a study, and I know the architect is working on this. I think there's 36 spots right now. I just think that anything less than that is unacceptable. We need to have parking. We need to have even more parking for people to drop their kids off. I think we will find an acceptable solution, for everybody. I don't really know what that is yet, because we have a lot of different, moving parts, but we will have to get this done. We can't, have people walk too far or drop people off in a dangerous situation. But I do know that, we are looking at that. I'm very involved in it. I know Paul is very involved in it, and we're going to grind it out till we find something that's acceptable, not just to get it done, to get an acceptable solution.
Yeah.
That's all I can say right now,
Okay.
because we don't have everything totally worked out yet on the studies and everything. Is that fair?
I'll certainly echo what Phil said, and we're working very closely with the Committee on House Administration as well on identifying all the spots that we need. Since we control pretty much all the parking in the area, we should be able to figure it out. But we're certainly working on it, work in progress, but I'm confident, as Phil said, we'll get to the spaces that we need.
Okay. Phil, before I move on, one of the things we've been talking about was food waste at the Capitol, and I think it's a significant number. And I know we've put language in recent bills talking about how are we going to reduce the food waste, and I want it to be more than just we're putting language in the bill talking about food waste. So can you talk to us about what we're doing?
I'll get back with a finer specific points of what Sedesco is doing. I know that they're very, very involved in reducing food waste. They're very involved in portion control. It's not, for them, it's not beneficial from a profit and loss statement to have a lot of food waste, but I'll get specifically back with you on, I know that they donate food to, nonprofits as well, but it's done anonymously. And they don't want to take credit for it, but they do. And I'll get a little more detail on all that and report back to you
Okay.
fairly fast.
Be great. So the portion control is implemented, and then we go to Dunkin' Donuts and get the donuts. Story of our lives, isn't it? Mr. Irving, we obviously had a tragic experience last year with a multi-member event with the baseball practice. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the changes maybe that you've made to address some of our concerns with multi-member events?
Yes, we've instituted a robust outreach to all member offices, committees, leadership. Anytime any member or group of members are going to go off campus, we want to know about it. We'll conduct a survey, work very closely with the Capitol Police, and I appreciate very much the Capitol Police. Chief Verderosa and Assistant Chief Sund have done a great job stepping up and providing us the manpower that we need to staff all of these off-campus events. As you know, there were many events that we did not staff at one time, but we're doing that now. So as the survey goes out, we'll determine the degree of manpower that we need, depending on the site, depending on the exposure, and provide the requisite level of Capitol Police support at all of those events. So that's a big change. We've streamlined the way members can contact our office. They can do so via the HouseNet. I receive many letters from members anyway, usually when they're going to have something off campus. But we want to make it as easy as possible for those requests to come in and staff those. And I also send a team out from my office as well. So that's been a pretty big change in the level of support that we provide to members off campus.
And you mentioned security back in the district office. Can you just kind of go over that one more time and
Sure,
maybe
yes.
let us know how many offices are taking advantage of this at this point?
Yes, no, thank you. It's been very successful. Many, many members' offices have taken advantage. We've done, we started last summer, after the events of June. And again, I appreciate very much the support of the committee. We've done over 260 different member offices, so members. We've done almost a little over 350 individual offices, so some members will have more than one office done. We're monitoring at about 440, 450 offices. We're monitoring. We picked up the monitoring fee. Some members had other services from other companies other than our main service provider. So it's been very successful. So we've got just about well over half members that are now involved in the program. We know we can do better, so we're just continuing our outreach. With the transition now coming on, it's slowed down a little bit, but we're expecting it to certainly pick up once we do the get into new member orientation for the next Congress.
Okay, thank you. Quickly, Ms. Haas, we heard a pretty practical proposal. Under the chairman's leadership, we've invited numerous groups to come in and talk to us about some ideas that they may have as to how we could maybe run our institution a little bit better. And they asked that we put together, one of the groups asked that we put together one central calendar for all House committee hearings and markups with all the relevant details on one website. Is that something that you've looked into, and do you think there's some reason why we wouldn't be able to do that? We think it would be good for our constituents to know. We already know, as I said last time, that all of the hearings are at the same time. But maybe it's important for the public to know exactly where they are.
Absolutely.
So have you looked at this?
So the good news is we've already done that. The calendar does exist. It's available through our current website. It's also available through congress.gov. I think the bad news in the fact that that question was asked is that we're not doing a good enough job at making it easily available and making people aware of it. So the calendar is available. We created it a couple years back. It's on docs.house.gov. It is prominent on our new website, which will be fully effective in January. But we will work with the library and to make sure that it is easily accessible for the public.
So if our committee schedules a hearing, you'll immediately know about it and immediately put it on there?
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
It's on there now. This hearing's on there today. So.
You're famous, Mr. Chairman. All right, I yield
Thank
back.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Of course, the bad news is the committee's got to tell you and us when they're going to have the hearings, right? Paul, I want to, I guess I need to talk with you and the chief offline, and it's kind of the same old subject, which is the screening to come into the buildings, as far as when you actually get there and somebody's putting you through the machine or they're wanting you or whatever, is okay. But it strikes me that we're in 110-year-old to 60-year-old buildings with vestibules that were made to do nothing other than walk through the door and walk into the building. And we've been doing that for a long time, and obviously we need to do that. But as you sit there, it's like, for a lot of these people that come to our offices, coming to the nation's capital is a big deal. And so when you're queued up outside the building and on the sidewalk, and if it's raining or whatever, it's hot or whatever it is, it's like coming and going out those doors a lot because, I mean, I don't need to worry about it, but you sense this frustration and this hostility. Not with the actual screening process, and it happens in all three buildings, because you know that I was on a jihad on, Cannon's the third-class citizen of the buildings and all that other sort of stuff. But it's not even really about that anymore. And so it strikes me that as we're sitting here doing one building, and we've had discussions already in this committee about, when is Longworth, and maybe Rayburn's in front of Longworth, it's like, hey, maybe part of that architect of the Capitol thing is, how do we screen people in a way that just doesn't involve the way we've been doing it since before there were this many people and before we designed those buildings to just have people walk through the doors? Because, and this is, I'm just saying, it's one of those things where you're like, well, you can add more lanes, you can do whatever. It's like, not in a lot of them, because basically the space doesn't exist. So what I would like to do, and any other member that wants to come, is, but it's like, and get the architect of the Capitol too to say, hey, we've been doing it this way for modern times, and quite frankly, it's some days an awful experience just to wait to get screened, and then they come to your office or well, I don't know if anybody comes to see Congressman Ryan, but anyhow, whoever's office, just wanted to see if you were listening down there, big guy. So anyhow, I think we need to talk about that because quite frankly, I know it's the source of some frustration for you guys too, but it's like, well, we kind of keep doing it. And so I think we need to start, and I don't know what the answer is.
Yes, could I make I made a passing reference of what we call the master plan. It's a security plan that was done a number of years ago that we're upgrading, and it's a collaborative effort of the Capitol Police Board. So it's the Senate Sergeant at Arms, the House Sergeant at Arms, and the architect. And we're actually looking at proposing at some point and we're in the process of designing now, outside screening centers.
Super screening area?
They would be screening centers. Those of us in the security business don't like screening inside buildings. We like screening to take place outside of the building. So this would help us with the paradigm that we would prefer, screening outside of the buildings, but also make it a far more pleasurable experience for those coming in out of the rain, out of the elements, maybe a seating area. I would have appointments desks there, so appointments could be served there. It'd be a far better experience for everyone. The initial goal, as you know, way back for the Capitol Visitor Center was sort of to be that entrance, and it didn't necessarily turn out that way because of the locations of the various House and Senate office buildings. But having said that, I look forward to sitting down with you because we can show you some diagrams that we've already started to come up with to enhance the experience and make it better.
Thank you. Yield back, Mr. Chairman.
And as part of that, one of the proposals is to build the south Capitol door entrance, right? And to put that outside.
Yes. In fact, there was one, a temporary structure at one time after 9/11. When the CVC opened, that went away, thinking that most folks would come in via the CVC. But we would like to establish that once again, construct that again, so there'd be just outside what's known as the south door on the House side of the Capitol, would have its own separate structure, which would be screening, and again, our appointments desk, waiting area, we feel would make the Capitol far more secure because we would take care of any issues, outside of the Capitol before you get in. The Senate does have a structure now, but it's a small, temporary trailer. I think that they do probably want to upgrade as well.
So the south door structure would look different than the Senate structure. How would it look?
Well, it probably look, at some point, both would look the same.
But in terms of the current Senate structure, That's a temporary trailer.
It's a
That's
trailer.
not what your proposal is for this outdoor.
No, it would be
What's
something.
that look like?
It would be, if you would imagine some of our kiosks that are stone, so they would more closely match the architecture of the building. And we have to work with the architect to see if this is going to be a structure that's going to be a forever structure or something that'll be a little more temporary. But certainly it would be more than just a trailer, than one of these.
And the idea is that if someone did have some sort of explosive device, they wouldn't be in the Capitol when they were getting screened, right? They would be outside.
It would be outside.
And does that structure have some way to contain? Is it built in a way that might have anticipate there could be a problem and have a structure that contains that?
Yes, not to get into some of the
Sure.
area borders unclassified, but
Correct.
yes, it would be designed to withstand certain issues and certainly be far more protection than what we have now. We've instigated a number of countermeasures in the meantime by enhancing our presence outside with what we call vapor wake or PBIED canines that will detect certain explosives. So we do our best to put as many personnel, law enforcement personnel, Capitol Police, at those areas where people come into the buildings, but it would be better to have a separate structure outside for full screening.
The tragic shooting, killing of was it 2 officers in, what was that,
1998?
1998?
Yes.
I wasn't here in Washington at that time, but the shooter then was able to access the Capitol.
Unfortunately, yes. Again, that was a classic example of someone who came into the building and was in the building, and we want to avoid that.
And that would be also preventable and somewhat if the screening was happening outside.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Ms. Haas, the voting system that you spoke about, I'm sure lots of members will have questions for me and Mr. Ryan about that if, you know, it happens and they don't like parts of it. And so I just want to make sure I understand. So all of the voting boxes on the floor will be replaced.
Correct.
And they're being replaced with boxes that look similar but have modern technology.
That's exactly right.
One piece of that is there'll be a little digital readout that'll tell you what your vote is.
Well, there is a screen at this
Screen,
point. Right now, the screen's very small, and when you put your card in, your name will come up. So initially, that's what it's going to
So you know you have your right card.
Correct. So everything, and then it has some basic things in there. So it'll it'll restate what your vote is after you've voted. So it's another way for you to check your vote. It also, as you may recall, this new system will allow visually impaired members, if we have any folks that are visually impaired. It has technology for that built into the new cards that we're going to be distributing. So those are the real changes. From an operational standpoint, as a member, you're going to see very little difference on the screen.
And what's the benefit to the institution to do this?
So first of all, the current boxes are more than 20 years old. We're moving from what was a custom technology to a technology that's more commercially available. We'll be able to support the systems ourselves. So I mentioned the display. They're going to have their new LED. So everything is really modernized in the new voting boxes. But
The voting board will work the same. The functionality is the
no changes
same.
to the board at all. That's right.
How much is this costing us?
The whole, do you know, Bob?
Over 300,000. And will the cards look any different?
The cards will look the same. The new cards that we are going to distribute right after the August break, the one change, we're going to put a Capitol Dome on there just so you'll be able to know the difference from the earlier card from the beginning of this Congress. But if you try to use your old card, they will not work in the new system.
Okay.
So we will be aggressively communicating to member offices over the August break.
Will we need like a training session for some members to be able to explain to them how to use this, or are they going to be able to? This old dog, new tricks kind of issue here, but it will be okay.
I think you'll find it very simple. The other thing is during the April break, we did bring out the 50 boxes and we tested them on the floor, and everything's continuing.
And there'll be
to go
more
well.
boxes, right, than we have now?
We'll have 2 additional boxes on each side.
Okay.
And your leaderships have designated where those boxes should
Got it.
go.
Okay.
Did you say earlier you're going to do a baseball, softball
That's right.
display?
Yes, sir.
So the chairman and I would just like to recommend for that display a picture over here.
Okay. I'll
of
make
two of
note
the
of that.
finest athletes that have ever played the game.
Take that under
What we still don't know
consideration.
is whether you caught that ball, right?
All I know is I couldn't walk the next morning.
And with that, the subcommittee is adjourned. We will reconvene at 1:30 tomorrow when we will meet for our subcommittee markup for fiscal year 2019 legislative branch appropriations bill. With that, thank you all three for your work and for your team, and look forward to the great rest of your year.